Everything in the political world has changed in the last week, but on many college campuses, things have just become more the way they were, which is to say hysterical, reactionary, and totally out of touch with the rest of America. Classes and exams have been postponed, safe spaces have been erected, protests planned, and administration buildings occupied. What is going on? And by the way, what exactly is a safe space? Joining us now is Jill Hopkins. She's an assistant professor of journalism at DePaul University, and she had a very emotional group of kids in her classroom shortly after Hillary's concession speech. Professor, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
I keep reading these stories about people breaking down on college campuses, and I try to put myself in your position as a professor. So you have a kid come into your class crying about the election. As the adult, shouldn't you say, you know, it was just an election, and it was democratic, and nobody got cancer, and nobody died, and maybe you should toughen up a little? Why wouldn't you say something like that?
Well, what I tried to do in my class on Wednesday morning is I taught my first class of the day, which was an introduction to journalism course, and we had talked about the election, political polling, fact-checking prior to Election Day. And I think for many students, the result was, as for many people in the United States, a surprise. And I taught my class shortly after Hillary Clinton gave her concession speech. And for many students, particularly for young women, it was something a glass ceiling to break, to aspire to have a woman as president of the United States. And so I don't think it's about, as you were saying, being hysterical, but it's about processing and having a space to make sense of what happened and to have a discussion.
I get it, but it's also about having safe spaces. And at the University of Michigan Law School, where adults presumably attend, and I'm quoting now, post-election self-care and food and play. So this included Play-Doh and Legos, a safe space for people to go to, you know, feel, I don't know what. And that is kind of the question to you. What is a safe space exactly?
Well, in my opinion, the role of higher education is to foster debate, but also to be cognizant of students that are coming to our campuses from many different backgrounds. I work at DePaul University, which is an urban campus here in Chicago, a very diverse campus. And so, for example, in my class, the way that I approached it the day after the election was to return to themes that we had talked about prior to the election in terms of the role of a press in a free society. And
okay,
the role
but wait a second. I'm sorry to interrupt
state.
you. And I think those are great questions, and I'm glad that you're raising them. But the role of the university, in practical terms, is not to foster the debate. It's to squelch it. And so people who disagree are crushed, and people who agree with the herd are elevated. I mean, is there really a debate? Do you know a single DePaul University professor who voted for Trump and said so out loud? Do you know one?
You know what? I do not talk about my personal political leanings with my colleagues.
You know as well as I that there isn't any at all. And isn't that a problem? Isn't that a lack of diversity?
I don't think that you have any evidence to support that claim, and that's actually not the right question. The right question is the role of the university to, again, I teach journalism, and so what I said to my students the day after the election was returning to the role of a press in a free society. And our role as journalists, as you would know, is to hold all elected officials accountable, regardless of our personal
but also our
political
powerful
leanings.
people. And you're a professor, and so you fall into that category, if I can say, as someone to whom others look for guidance. And I just kind of want to press you on this diversity question. So the whole idea of diversity is that the airless room produces bad decisions. We need people from different walks of life who have different points of view in order to make wise decisions. I think that's the underlying justification for it. And yet, in academia, there's virtually no one who disagrees from the liberal orthodoxy. Isn't it, and this is a sincere question, isn't it time for some sort of affirmative effort to bring people who disagree from other walks of life into your world?
Well, we certainly try to foster discussion, debate, and have dialogue about the role of free speech on college campuses, the role of free speech in society, and certainly I think that this election does bear out that we need to find ways to reach across partisan divides and speak with those who do not share our own views.
Well, fostering a conversation about free speech is different from allowing free speech, I notice, unfortunately. But, Professor, you're game to come on, and I appreciate your point of view. Thanks a lot.